We're going to start this class with some sensory activation drills. This is mostly intended, again, for folks who are hypermobile. If that doesn't apply to you, this is still going to feel really good. But one of the features of hypermobility is challenges with proprioception. So right now, our first goal is just to wake up our brain and our brain's communication with our body. So we're going to take our hands and make small circles around our eyes like we're washing our face. Make them in one direction. Make them in the other. You do this with both hands. I'm only doing it with one right now, but you do it with both. Keep going. And then again, I'm going to mime this because of my mic, but what I want you to do now is take both of your hands and just rub across your face like you're washing your face in the morning or in the evening. Take your hands, make claws, and give yourself a little scalp massage. Run your hands through your hair to the front, up from the base of your skull in the back. And we're going to move down and do sternal tapping. This is a practice that you can find in a lot of this is something that comes from different Eastern medicine practices and modalities. And there are a lot of benefits attached to circulation and energy and stress. But for today, my biggest interest is, again, in just helping your body figure out where the boundaries of your body even are. And this might sound really weird to you, or this might sound like it makes a lot of sense depending on what your experience is being someone who deals with hypermobility. So we've got our sternal tapping happening, and we're going to start slapping down our arm. Let's turn the palm up and slap down this way. And you're slapping enough to feel a bit of sting. We'll go back up. Hands. And the back of your hand. And up. Onto your chest. Take a second. Notice if you feel a difference from one side to another. And back the other way, or back on the other side. And clap your hands. Off the back of the hand and up. Onto the chest. And down to the ribs. Now this next part's going to be odd for me too because of some of the equipment that I have on, but I want you to bend over and take fists, and I want you to just give little gentle pounding on your low back. So bend over and pound. I'm going to give you a second to do that. And go ahead, stand up, shake that out. We're going to start making circles with our arms. Before we do that, take a second, maybe feel the sort of awakeness of your skin. Maybe you feel some of the circulation benefits of what we just did. Maybe you're just a little bit more aware of where your body is in space because you have more feedback currently in your skin about where you are. So we're going to take we're going to take some big arm circles. You're going to reach up and you're going to exhale. And as you exhale and you come down, I want you to gather. I want you to find your core. I want you to lift up and inhale. Exhale, scoop, gather, front body turns on. Everything arrives at once. So your torso finishes opening as your arms reach the top. Exhale, inhale. Finish your inhale breath, exhale. Legs squeeze into the midline for balance. Firm your ankles in. One more. It's challenging. And let it go. take a big forward fold, rolling down through your spine first. Soften your knees, tuck your tail, roll back up. Bring your arms out to the side. Push. You really push the heels of your palms away, reach your fingertips towards your face, make small circles. So, as I mentioned before, one of the things that tends to be a problem for folks who deal with a certain amount of hypermobility is just general proprioception. Your body's ability to talk to your body through your joints is more difficult the more space you have in your joints, the more hypermobile you are. Switch directions of your circle. So some of what we're trying to do here is just activate all of the small stabilizers in our shoulders. We're not doing big motions. Push forward. We're not working big muscle groups. We're just talking to small stabilizers that tend to have a hard time firing, especially if you're somebody with a lot of laxity in your joints. Push up and push down and drop that. I'm going to bring my arm overhead. If you have a 3-pound weight, a 5-pound weight, a soup can, now would be a good time to grab something just a little bit heavy up here, and we're going to spell the ABCs. D, E, F. I'm not going to sing it for you. I'm on V. Cool. Hopefully you got through the alphabet too. If not, you've got another chance. Do it over here. My left hand really doesn't know how to do the ABCs very well. You'll probably find the same. P, W, X, Y, Z. Cool. So hopefully a little warm in the shoulders, especially if you got to use a weight, and hopefully a little bit, hopefully we're talking through our joint a little bit better at this point. We're going to do another rolling forward fold down the spine. Really want you to think about pulling space into your back body. So as my chin tucks to my chest, I feel the space in the vertebra between my neck grow. And as my chin continues to roll and as my chest collapses, the space at the back of my shoulders expands. My solar plexus moves into my body. My bra strap area gets big. As I roll around my ribs and my belly button moves in, my back body opposite it grows. And you'll take a minute here being as big and expansive in your low back as you can be before you let your hips tilt. Soften your knees, roll back up. Do it one more time. Walk out to plank. We're going to do 8 scapular push-ups. You have the option to do this here or here. Either is fine. I care that your belly button is into your spine and that your low back is long. Your tail is a bit tucked. You're going to do something that looks like a push-up, but your arms aren't going to bend. So I'm letting my scapula move towards each other in the back, and then I'm pushing away and towards each other and push. And if this movement is unfamiliar to you, you might go check out the All About Shoulders video just to start to tune in to the movement of your scapula. I think this is 6. Good. We'll come again to all fours position. This is something that I've done in most of the movement videos in this series. And that's because turning on our pulling muscles on the floor is quite hard. So hopefully this is familiar to you. If not, come to all fours. You're going to think about taking your hand, dragging it on the floor down towards your knee without actually letting anything move. Take a big inhale breath in. Take that breath into your low back and then pull You should feel a tremendous amount of work happening under your armpits right now, down your side body, and release that. Again, take a breath in, pull, and release. Move your hands out just a little bit. We're going to do the same pulling motion and take it all the way down to a child's pose. So as you begin to pull, you're going to sit your butt back towards your heels. There will come a moment where your hands can't pull evenly through the palm anymore, but rather need to pull from the pinky side edge of the palm, letting the thumb roll up. And that's totally normal. I just want you to cue into where that moment is for you so that you get to know your shoulders a little bit better. So hands are a little bit further out in front of you, a little past your shoulders. Take a breath in, pull, sit back, back, back. At a certain point, your thumbs will roll up, your pinkies stay down, your pull begins to feel more like a push, and you release. One more time. Pull, move back. We're working the action of closing our shoulders from an overhead stretch position here. And release. I also want us to work lifting our shoulders in this overhead stretch position. So I'll show you what I mean. If you would bring your forehead to the floor and lift your arm, maintaining this thumbs up position. This is the work that we're going to do. Now, you might find that if you come down to the floor and try this, either that nothing moves or that you compensate in a weird way. We want to be especially cognizant of compensations in this arm overhead shoulder position because our shoulders are quite vulnerable and cranky. They're irritable. So what I especially don't want is I don't want you to lift your shoulder by dipping into an internally rotated position. And what I mean by that is that if that happens, you'll feel the outside perimeter of the shoulder wing up and the thumb go down. So this. That's obviously a gross exaggeration, but I want you to see what we're talking about, and then I want you to be really honest about whether or not that's what you're feeling. If doing this from child's pose on the floor feels incredibly difficult, you can grab your block. And I'm going to come to my child's pose again, and I'm going to put my forehead on the block and lift from here. So I'm going to do this with you. We're going to do 8 on each side. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Switch sides. If it's helpful to think about reaching out instead of up, go ahead and do that. Try to keep your arm in line with your ear as you lift, not letting it drift out to the side. Other side, head down. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. We'll put this block to the side for a bit. The next thing we're going to do is an exercise that we have seen before in the flexibility for box tie video. You're going to either follow along with me or want a timer for this one. You're going to lie on your belly, bringing your arm to 12 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock. You're going to internally rotate the shoulder blade quite hard, so I have the top of my shoulder head pushing down onto the floor as I roll over to my side. Now that I've set that up, I'm going to turn to face you. From here, drop your head down to the floor, and we're getting ready to push down in this arm in 3, 2, 1, push down. Grow your push. The push comes from the eye of the elbow. It pushes through the bicep onto the shoulder head, like I'm trying to leave a arm print in the floor below me. And lift up. Fingertips lift. Fingertips, wrist, maybe your elbow. Drive the shoulder head into the floor harder to get a little bit of extra lift. And rest in your stretch. It's a lot of work. We're going to do it 2 more times on this side. This is again an instance where if nothing's moving, that's totally fine. It's better to will it to lift and think about it hard than to cheat and push down. However, if you're someone who's quite hypermobile, if you're someone who really struggles to develop strength or stability in your shoulder, another thing that you could do would be to roll out of the stretch until you feel like you're in a position that you can work in. Good, so keep pushing, we're almost there, and lift the arm. So if you're in this stretch and nothing's happening at all, and you do want to roll forward a little bit until you find lift, that's an acceptable option, especially for people, like I said, who have a lot of laxity in their joint, who struggle a lot with shoulder stability. And rest in your stretch. Good job. 1 more time on this side. We're almost done. Enjoy the stretch. Maybe you feel it, maybe it doesn't feel like much. If you are feeling it, it's probably gotten a little bit easier after doing all of this work here. And push down, last round. 20 seconds of pushing. Grow to your max effort. Try to get to your hardest push that you can possibly manage about 10 seconds in. So we're already there. Max effort. Last push. And internally rotate. Feel congestion on the side body, back body, just below the armpit. Try to squeeze into that congestion a little bit more. See if you can get a little bit more lift out of this here. Good. 5 seconds left. 3, 2, 1. Rest in your stretch. And slowly make your way out of it. And switch sides before you think too hard about having to do it again. 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Internally rotate and roll over. I'm going to switch so that I can see my timer. Go ahead and reset your clocks if you need to. We're going to get ready to push in 3, 2, 1, push down. Good. Play with pushing through your palm, through your elbow. Notice what feels better. For most people, pushing through the elbow feels better, though some people do tend to have a tiny bit of pain in the elbow in this position, and a slight bend in the arm can be helpful for that. And lift up. Oh, I made you push for a couple extra seconds. Float your fingertips, float your wrists. You don't get any points for having your fingers super high, so try to keep everything in one straight line. 3 more seconds, and rest in your stretch. Really take this time to reset yourself, to calm your nervous system. Tell yourself that you're doing a great job and push. Feel the push happen hard enough that it feels like it's trying to roll you out of your stretch, like you're trying to flatten yourself back down to the floor, and float the fingertips, float the wrist. Maybe you find a tiny bit of daylight under the elbow. Again, if you're really struggling to have any movement happen at all, you can lean forward a little bit here. Find the range that you're able to work in, with the goal being that you're going to continue to move back and back deeper into your stretch. And rest in your stretch here. Doing good. We've got 1 more round. And then you never have to watch this video ever again if you don't want to, but I hope that you keep doing this and coming back to this despite the work. Push down. Keep pushing. This sort of work is really exhausting in the beginning. The first time you do this, you might feel totally wiped after the fact. And it gets so much easier so quickly because so much of the work initially is just your brain figuring out how to talk to your body. Lift up in this position, like your brain figuring out how to ask your body to do work in a range of motion that it's probably never asked before. Good, almost there. 3 more seconds. 3, 2, 1. Rest in your stretch. You're done. You did it. Congratulations. And come on out. Whew. So that was a lot of work for our internal rotation of our shoulder, a lot of active work for our internal rotation. And before we move away and finish our shoulders, I want to do a little bit of work for our external rotation. And so for this, you're going to grab your yoga block again. I'm going to grab my yoga block. And I'm going to lie on the floor, really pushing my back body here down into the floor, thinking about closing my ribs. So this goes back to some of the work we talked about in the transverse abdominis video. If you don't know what I mean by that, you might check that out. If you have a foam roller here or something to elevate your hips, that can be helpful in pushing this down to the mat. I'm going to take the block and I'm going to put it in between my elbows, not my forearms, but my elbows, so that I can squeeze in with my elbows and bring my wrists wide. And through the whole exercise, I want my wrists to be wider than my elbows. Lift my hips, push my back into the ground, bring my arms overhead, keeping the elbows reaching, and back down. That's as far as I can get with this exercise. If you're coming to the ground fully and easefully, you're probably cheating. So expect this to feel limiting. Lift your hips, push your back, elbows push in, wrists come wide. Go overhead only as far as you can go while maintaining this elbow squeeze and this wrist opening. Bring it back. We're going to do it 2 more times. Remember that external rotation is something that you should be feeling like under your armpits and at your ribs. If that feels confusing to you, if that cue feels confusing to you, check out the shoulders video. Okay, we're going to do a little bit of core work, and then we're going to move into our legs. I'm actually going to do this first, because I've got this right now. This is something that I will do with a block. If I had a foam roller, I would use that. It would be a little bit better. If this feels quite simple to you, 2 blocks or something bigger than this is going to be ideal. Bring your block under your tailbone. Bring one leg straight and keep the hip open. I care about this open hip. The thing that opens our hips is our butt. So my butt is squozen very hard right now. And I'm going to bring the other knee bent as close as I can get it. From here, I'm going to push my low back towards the floor. I have a lot of space between my low back and the floor. I'll have more space if I was using a larger tool. But I'm going to push my low back to the ground and lift my leg and release it. We're going to do this 8 times. Notice that the butt here stays turned on the entire time. I'm not bending at the hip at all. I'm tucking my tail by curling through my abs. That was 3. 4, thinking about length through the hip, energy shooting out the toe. 5. 6. 7, feeling my ribs close, my back body pushing down towards the floor. And 8, if you want to try to hold it here and switch, you can, or if you want to just reset, in a looser position and find yourself again, that's totally fine too. My left leg is now bent. My right glute is turned on hard, keeping my right hip open. Pull the knee towards your chest. 8, 7, 6, 5. Good job. Energy shooting out the toe, butt stays squeezed. 3, 2, belly button drives down into the floor. Your low back follows. 1, and release. Good job. You can get rid of your block for a second. We don't need it for the next exercise. We're going to do dead bug. Put your hands at the base of your skull. Close your ribs to lift your neck. So the space here closes. The space on your back body opposite that pushes into the floor to lift your neck. Your knees lift. And then you're not touching the floor by bending your legs. You're touching the floor by extending your legs, maintaining this 90-degree bend at the knees and not letting the knees track up past the hips. This is easier than we want it to be. So try to keep the legs floating. We're going to do 8 more. You can take out the center. 7, change. 6, change. 5, switch. 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Settle yourself into a seated position, legs at 90 degrees. This is something that you might have seen in some of the other videos in this movement series. We're going to do it a little bit differently given our goals of strengthening our end range of motion today. So, forward leg pushes down into the mat. I'm not pushing it, it's pushing, and that's happening from my glute. Back leg starts to peel up while this leg stays pushing down. At a certain point, I can't possibly keep opening this back leg without bringing this one with me. And so I do, but it still wishes it was back there. Now they're both pulling me in opposite directions. I switch my weight to my other butt cheek. But even as this becomes my new front leg, this leg still wants to be where it started until my front leg finds the floor. From here, put your hand on your foot and your knee and push up with the knee for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release. You're going to bring your hands to your side. I'm trying to lift the leg as a unit. It is likely that your knee is going to lift a little bit before you get the heel off the floor. We're trying to bring them together, and it's better to look at it and imagine that one day it's going to lift than it is to let your knee come this far up. A little bit of movement here is okay, but if you're really like closing all of the work that we just did, sit here and just think about the muscles that it would take to lift the leg. So we're going to lift for 4, 3, 2, 1. Release and stretch over it. Back leg lifts 4, 3, 2, 1. Outer glute is lifting here. Again, trying to lift everything together, not anything like this. And it's up to you in this moment how much you want to do the actual lifting versus how much you want to just look at the leg and imagine that one day it's going to lift. Maybe do a little bit of both. One more time, going back, peel your back leg open. This leg is pushing onto the floor. Legs are pulling in opposition now, even as my weight shifts. And I switch to face my new front leg. Hands on my front leg, and I push up specifically from the knee into my hand for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I bring my hands to the outside off of the leg and try to lift. You can move back a little bit to try to lift, but not back so much that you've rocked like off of the front of your underbutt. You need to keep your weight over your glutes. Lift 4, 3, 2, 1. You'll want to walk your hands a little bit to the outside of the forward thigh to lift the back leg. 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Shake that out. Grab your yoga block again. And find what level is right for you. Likely, if you deal with a lot of hypermobility, squeezing at this level is going to be hard, and something like this is going to be the better choice. Coming to all fours, your first and foremost job is to keep your low back flat. So there's no bonus points for getting your knee way up if your belly drops and your low back arches. So low back flat, the lift comes from just below your glutes, upper hamstring. Lift the leg and open it. I call this peeing on the fire hydrant. Bring your knee into your armpit. And now you can push the floor away and round through your back. Reset. Lift. Open. Armpit. Pull in. Switch. Low back is a tabletop. Lift. Pee on your fire hydrant. Pull your knee in towards your armpit and round your back. Once more. Hip opening. Hip external rotation. Knee into your armpit. Push the floor away. Turn on your abs. Pull your thigh to your belly and release. Good. Come to a lunge on your right side. And don't worry about feeling stretch here. We're going to do work here. So take a second. If you haven't been in a lunge today, if you want to move around in this for a moment and do what feels good, that's a totally fine thing to do. And then after you've had a minute getting your wiggles out, push up to a stacked position. So I'm 90 degrees at the front knee, 90 degrees in the back knee, and there's no hip crease here. I'm not hinged forward, even in a sort of like microscopic way. I'm really squeezing my butt, trying to keep this hip open, open, open. And as I do so, I'm trying to keep my ribs over top of my pelvis. I'm not opening the hip and moving back like this because of it. So butt squeezed, ribs closed. From here, take a big breath in. And now peel your back foot up off of the floor for 8, 7. Bring it closer to your butt. 6, 5, 4, 3. Keep squeezing, keep fighting. 2. Little pulses. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. That probably gave you a bit of a cramp. That's normal. Stretch that out for a second. If that was really intense, it gets better. Hopefully it wasn't so miserable that you're not at home like cursing my name and refusing to do this on the other side, because symmetry is important. So come into your lunge on the left. Take a second, wiggle around in it. Don't think too much about what comes next. Just enjoy this moment. Should feel good. Once you've gotten your wiggles out, stack up. Push up to 90, 90. Squeeze your glute and close your ribs. So my right leg glute is turned on, my right hip feels open. I feel stretch. You may or may not feel that. And I'm avoiding the instinct that I have when I squeeze my butt to arch back. So hips are pulling into my ribs. Now take a breath in. Peel your back leg up off of the floor, keeping the glute turned on. Ooh, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Keep fighting for more. 3, 2. Little pulses. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oofa. Good. Throw it to the front. Stretch it out. This is a good time for the hamstring stretches where you put a soft bend in the knee and do small cat-cows in the tail. If you want to take a second and pause the video and do any sort of forward folding that you might need to do, that's fine. I promise that your recovery time for doing this will get shorter over time. We're going to do one final thing. I'm going to grab my block just in case. You're welcome to use these. They're unnecessary for this skill, however. So I'm going to sit in pike, legs in front of me. I'm going to bring my hands to my side. Again, trying not to lean all of my weight back onto my back, but trying to stay forward over my sits bones. So if you can feel the sort of bony bits of seat in your butt, we're trying to keep our weight over top of those. Now we'll do this one leg at a time. So I'm going to take my right leg and I'm going to really turn on the quad. I'm thinking about pushing the back of the knee down into the floor. Maybe the heel floats as you do it. And you're going to lift for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Most people who aren't familiar with this will try to lift from the knee. So if your attempt just now looked like this, then this is a moment where you have to decide that you're going to sit here and look at your leg and imagine that one day it's going to lift up with you as your brain tells it to. So take a breath in, lift 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Now for the block. This is totally optional if you want to use this way. If you wanted a smaller object like a tennis ball or something like that, that could work too. We're going to do this one at a time. If you have 2 objects, do your legs 2 at a time. Keeping my weight forward, I'll lift and switch and lift and switch and lift and switch. And there's probably a point at which the block gets to be too tall, but you could still like eke out a little bit of extra lift. And that's totally, you can take the block away in that moment, no stress. If you want to make it really fun, you can. And we're going to switch sides. Grab a prop if you want it. Don't worry about it if you don't. Lift, switch, lift, switch. Notice that I'm keeping my hands close to my knees so that my weight stays forward. I wouldn't take them much further than my hips. As soon as I get here, I end up just completely changing the balance of my body rather than actually utilizing my hip flexors. Things that you can do to up the intensity as this becomes a little bit simpler, as this becomes a little bit more accessible, is to walk your hands forward and to do 2 legs at a time. So this is easier than this. This is easier than being out here, and any combination of this. So you can lean quite forward and do your little lifts into straddle. Hopefully that's helpful. This is the end of the video, so I would encourage you to play with this as you see fit. There's not an additional exercise after this. So I hope you enjoyed, and I hope that your joints are healthier and happier for it.